The fever had come on so suddenly that Emma Morrison barely made it to the abandoned homestead before her legs gave out, her 3-month-old son Thomas wailing in her arms as she collapsed against the splintered doorframe somewhere between Santa Fe and Las Vegas, Nevada, in the scorching August of 1882. She had been traveling alone for 6 days, fleeing a husband who had proven himself to be a monster in ways she could never have imagined on their wedding day 2 years prior. The bruises on her arms had faded to yellow, but the ones on her heart remained fresh and bleeding. When Daniel had raised his hand to their infant son for the first time, something inside Emma had broken and reformed into something harder, something that knew she had to run or watch her child suffer the same fate she had endured. She had taken what little money she had hidden away, packed a single bag, and disappeared into the night while Daniel lay drunk and unconscious in their bedroom. The journey had been brutal. The August heat in the Nevada territory was unforgiving, and the landscape stretched endlessly in all directions, a sea of sage and sand punctuated by distant mountains that seemed to mock her with their unreachable sanctuary. She had rationed her water carefully, but not carefully enough, and by the 4th day she felt the first stirrings of illness creeping through her body. By the 6th day, when she spotted the weathered structure rising from the desert like a mirage, her skin was burning and her vision had begun to blur at the edges. Thomas continued to cry, his small face red and scrunched with hunger and discomfort. Emma tried to lift herself from where she had fallen, but her arms trembled with the effort and refused to obey. The world tilted and spun, and she pressed her cheek against the rough wooden floor, feeling splinters dig into her skin. She needed to feed her son. She needed to change him. She needed to do 1,000 things, but her body had finally given up its desperate fight. "Please," she whispered to no one, to God, to the universe itself. "Please help my baby." The sound of hoofbeats might have been another fever dream, another cruel trick of her failing mind. But then a shadow fell across the doorway and a voice, deep and concerned, cut through the haze. "Madam? Madam, can you hear me?" Emma forced her eyes open, squinting against the harsh sunlight that haloed the figure standing above her. She could make out the shape of a hat, broad shoulders, and then the man was kneeling beside her, his face coming into focus. He was young, perhaps 25 or 26, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of creek water in summer. Concern etched lines around his mouth as he reached out to touch her forehead, and she felt his sharp intake of breath at the heat radiating from her skin. "Lord have mercy," he muttered. "You are burning up something fierce." "My baby," Emma managed to gasp out. "Please, my baby." The man's gaze shifted to Thomas, who had worked himself into a full-throated scream. Without hesitation, the stranger scooped the infant up with surprising gentleness for someone with such large, work-roughened hands. "I have got you, little one," he said softly, adjusting his hold until Thomas was cradled securely against his chest. The baby continued to wail, but there was something in the stranger's voice, some quality of calm assurance, that made Emma's racing heart slow just a fraction. "What is his name?" the man asked, looking back down at her. "Thomas," Emma whispered. "His name is Thomas. He needs to eat. I have bottles in my bag and milk, please. Do not worry about a thing. I will take care of him while you rest." The stranger stood, still holding Thomas with one arm, while he used his free hand to grab Emma's traveling bag from where it had fallen near the door. "My name is Isaac Flynn. I have a camp about a 1/4 mile from here. I am going to get you both there and tend to you proper. Can you ride?" Emma tried to nod, but even that small movement sent the world spinning. She felt consciousness slipping away from her like water through cupped hands. "All right then," Isaac said, his voice seeming to come from very far away. "I will figure something out. Just hold on, madam. You hold on." When Emma woke next, she was lying on a bedroll inside a tent, a damp cloth across her forehead and the sound of her son cooing softly somewhere nearby. She turned her head, every muscle in her body protesting the movement, and saw Isaac Flynn sitting cross-legged near the tent opening, Thomas cradled in the crook of his arm while he held a bottle to the baby's mouth with patient precision. "There you go," Isaac murmured to Thomas. "Nice and easy. That is it. You were hungry, were you not? I do not blame you. Your mama has been through something terrible, I would wager, but she got you this far. That takes a special kind of strength." Emma wanted to speak, to thank him, to explain, but her throat felt like sandpaper and her tongue would not cooperate. She made a small sound instead, and Isaac's head snapped up, his green eyes finding hers in the dimness of the tent. "Hey there," he said softly. "You are awake. That is good. That is real good." He kept the bottle positioned for Thomas, not moving from his spot. "You gave me quite a scare. Your fever is high, madam. Real high. I have been trying to cool you down with wet cloths and get some water in you when you are conscious enough to swallow." "How long?" Emma managed to croak out. "I found you about 3 hours ago. Sun will be setting soon." Isaac glanced down at Thomas, who had finished his bottle, and was now gazing up at the cowboy with wide, curious eyes. "This little man has been fed and changed. He is a good baby. Hardly fussed at all once he had a full belly." Tears leaked from the corners of Emma's eyes, tracking down her temples into her hair. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." "No thanks needed," Isaac replied. He shifted Thomas to his shoulder and began patting the baby's back with gentle, rhythmic taps. Anyone would do the same. But Emma knew that was not true. She had learned the hard way that there were plenty of people in this world who would have ridden right past, who would have seen a woman and child in distress and decided it was not their problem. The fact that this stranger had not only stopped but had taken them to his camp, had cared for her son while she lay insensible with fever, spoke to a character she had begun to believe did not exist in men. "Where were you headed?" Isaac asked after a moment, his tone casual, but his eyes sharp with concern. "Las Vegas," Emma said, then coughed, her lungs feeling tight and heavy. "I have a cousin there, Sarah Mitchell. She married a shopkeeper. I hope she might take us in for a while." Isaac nodded slowly. Thomas let out a small burp, and a smile ghosted across the cowboy's face before his expression turned serious again. "Las Vegas is still a good 2 days' ride from here, maybe 3 if you're traveling slow. And madam, I do not mean any offense, but you are in no condition to travel right now. That fever needs to break before you go anywhere, or you will not make it another mile." Emma knew he was right. Even the small effort of conversation had left her exhausted, and when she tried to lift her arm, it felt like it was weighted with lead. "I do not have a choice," she said, fighting back more tears. "I cannot stay here. He might find us." The words slipped out before she could stop them, and she saw Isaac's jaw tighten with understanding. He did not ask who, did not press for details. He simply looked down at the baby in his arms, then back at Emma. "Then we will make sure he does not," Isaac said quietly, "and you rest now. Get your strength back. I will watch over Thomas and keep an eye out. Anyone comes near this camp who should not be here, I will know." "You do not even know me," Emma whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Isaac was quiet for a long moment, gently swaying Thomas in his arms. "My mother died when I was young," he finally said. "Fever took her, same as what you have got. My father was no good, drunk more often than not, mean when he was sober. After my mother passed, there was no one to stand between him and me and my little sister. We suffered for it." He paused, his eyes distant with memory. "A neighbor woman, Mrs. Chen, she saw what was happening, started finding reasons to keep us at her place, feeding us, making sure we were all right, probably saved our lives. I figure I owe a debt to the world for that kindness. Maybe this is part of paying it back." Emma felt something crack open in her chest, some small space where hope had been buried under layers of fear and pain. "I am sorry about your mother," she managed. "Me too," Isaac said simply. He looked down at Thomas again, and his expression softened. But I'm glad I was in the right place today to help you and this little fellow. Now stop trying to talk and get some rest. Your body needs to fight this fever, and it cannot do that if you are using up energy worrying. Despite everything, despite the fear that still thrummed through her veins and the fever that made her bones ache, Emma felt her eyes growing heavy. There was something about Isaac Flynn, something in the gentle way he held her son and the quiet strength in his voice that made her feel safe for the first time in longer than she could remember. She let her eyes close, and within moments she had slipped back into an uneasy sleep. The next 2 days passed in a blur of fever dreams and brief moments of clarity. Emma would surface occasionally to find Isaac always nearby, always with Thomas. Sometimes he was feeding the baby, sometimes changing him, sometimes simply holding him and talking in that low, soothing voice about the ranch he worked on, about the horses he trained, about the vast Nevada sky and how it seemed to go on forever. Other times Emma would wake to find Isaac pressing a cup of cool water to her lips, coaxing her to drink, or replacing the cloths on her forehead with freshly dampened ones. During one lucid moment late on the second night, Emma woke to find Isaac pacing slowly around the small camp, Thomas held against his chest, the baby's head resting on the cowboy's shoulder. The moon was nearly full, casting everything in silver light, and Isaac was humming something low and tuneless, more a vibration than an actual melody. Thomas's eyes were closed, his small body relaxed in complete trust. "You are good with him," Emma said softly, startling Isaac slightly. He turned to face her, and in the moonlight, she could see the exhaustion on his face. He had not been sleeping much, she realized. He had been watching over both of them. "He makes it easy," Isaac replied, moving closer to the tent so they could talk without his voice carrying across the desert. "He is a sweet baby. Got your eyes, I think. That same unusual color, almost violet in certain light." Emma had not expected that observation, that he would have looked at her closely enough to notice such a detail. "He has my eyes, but his grandmother's nose. She passed before he was born. She would have loved him so much." "I am sure she would have," Isaac agreed. He adjusted his hold on Thomas, and the baby made a small contented sound without waking. "Your fever broke about an hour ago. You were sleeping peaceful enough that I did not want to wake you, but I thought you would want to know." Relief flooded through Emma so intensely that she felt dizzy with it. "Truly?" "Truly, you are not out of the woods yet. Still weak as a newborn kitten from what your body has been through, but the worst of it is past." Isaac lowered himself to sit near the tent opening, still cradling Thomas. "You should be able to travel in a few more days once you have gotten some proper food in you and built your strength back up." "I do not know how to thank you," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. "You have done so much for us. You saved our lives." Isaac shook his head. "I did what any decent person would do. You do not owe me anything." "But I do," Emma insisted. She pushed herself up on her elbows, pleased when the world did not immediately tilt sideways. "You have been caring for my son for 2 days. You have nursed me through a fever. You have not asked questions or demanded explanations. That is more than decency, Isaac. That is extraordinary." In the moonlight, she saw a faint flush creep up his neck. "Well," he said, seeming uncomfortable with the praise, "I have a sister, like I mentioned, Rebecca. She is 17 now, living in California with her husband. We write letters when we can. I keep thinking if she was ever in trouble, if she ever needed help, I would want someone to stop for her to make sure she was safe." Emma lay back down, suddenly aware that she was still very weak, but she kept her eyes on Isaac and her son. "Tell me about your ranch," she said. "The one you work on. What is it like?" Isaac's face brightened slightly. "The Faro Ranch. It is about 15 miles northeast of Las Vegas, up in the foothills. Beautiful land, probably 10,000 acres running cattle and horses. I work as a horse trainer there, breaking and training the mounts. Owner is a man named Charles Faro, Fairman, pays decent wages, treats his people right. I have been there for 4 years now, ever since I left Texas and came west. Do you like it? Emma asked. The work, I mean. Love it, Isaac said simply, and there was such honesty in his voice that Emma believed him completely. Horses make sense to me in a way people sometimes do not. They are honest. They react to how you treat them. You show them patience and respect. They will give you loyalty and trust. You treat them rough, they will fight you or break. Simple as that. Emma thought about her husband, about the way Daniel had become increasingly volatile and cruel after Thomas was born, as if the baby's presence had unleashed something dark in him that he had managed to keep hidden during their courtship. Not all people are like horses, she said quietly. Some hide what they truly are until you are trapped. Isaac looked at her for a long moment, understanding in his eyes. Your husband, he said. It was not a question. Yes. Emma felt tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. He was charming at first, kind. Or so I thought, but after we married, things changed. He drank. He got angry. And after Thomas was born, it got worse. I tried to leave before, but he found me, dragged me back, told me if I ever tried again, he would kill me and take Thomas somewhere I would never find him. She drew a shaky breath. But then he raised his hand to Thomas, to my baby, and I knew I had no choice. I had to get us out no matter the risk. Good, Isaac said fiercely, and the intensity in his voice surprised her. A man who would hurt a child, hurt his own child, is no man at all. You did the right thing, Emma. Do not ever doubt that. It was the first time he had used her name, and something about hearing it in his voice spoken with such conviction and support made Emma's heart squeeze in her chest. I am afraid he will come after us, she admitted. I'm afraid he will find us. If he does, he will have to go through me, Isaac said, and there was steel in his tone now. And I promise you, Emma, I will not let anyone hurt you or Thomas. Not while I'm here to prevent it. Emma believed him. Against all logic, against every lesson her marriage had taught her about trusting men, she believed Isaac Flynn when he said he would protect them. Maybe it was the fever still clouding her judgment, or maybe it was the way he held her son with such tenderness. But in that moment, Emma felt something she had not experienced in a very long time. She felt safe. By the morning of the third day, Emma was able to sit up and eat a proper meal. Isaac had made a simple stew of beans and dried meat, and though it was nothing fancy, it was the best thing Emma had tasted in days. She ate slowly, mindful of her still recovering stomach, while Isaac fed Thomas and then played with him, making silly faces that caused the baby to gurgle with delight. He likes you, Emma observed, watching the way Thomas's whole face lit up when Isaac leaned over him. The feeling is mutual, Isaac replied. He tickled Thomas's belly gently, eliciting another happy sound. He is a good little fellow. Going to be strong when he grows up, I can tell. I hope he grows up to be like you, Emma said before she could stop herself. She felt heat rise in her cheeks that had nothing to do with fever. I mean, kind, honorable, those qualities. Isaac looked up at her, and something passed between them, something electric and unspoken. That is about the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me, he said softly. For a moment they simply looked at each other, and Emma felt her pulse quicken in a way that was entirely different from illness. Isaac Flynn was handsome. There was no denying that, with his strong jaw and kind eyes, and the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. But it was more than his appearance. It was the gentleness with which he treated her son, the respect he showed her, the way he seemed to see her as a person worth protecting rather than property to be controlled. Thomas let out a squawk, breaking the moment, and Isaac returned his attention to the baby, but Emma could have sworn she saw a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. We should probably start thinking about getting you to Las Vegas, Isaac said after a moment. You are recovering well, but you are still not strong enough to ride on your own, and Thomas needs proper care in a real home. I have been thinking if you are amenable, I could take you there myself. My horse can carry both of us, and I can rig up a sling to hold Thomas secure. It is not the most comfortable way to travel, but it would get you to your cousin safely." "You would do that?" Emma asked, stunned by his continued generosity. "But what about your work? Your ranch?" "I am between jobs right now, actually," Isaac admitted. "I finished training a string of horses last week and have not started on the next batch yet. Boss told me to take some time to myself. I was out here camping, doing some hunting, just enjoying the solitude. So I have the time, and I would like to make sure you get to Las Vegas safe, if that is all right with you." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. It is more than all right. It is incredibly generous. "But Isaac, I have to tell you, I do not have much money. I cannot pay you for all you have done." "I am not asking for payment," Isaac said firmly. He scooped Thomas up and stood, walking over to hand the baby to Emma. "Here, I think he wants his mama. You two have some time together while I break down the camp and get things ready. We can leave at first light tomorrow if you are feeling up to it." Emma took her son into her arms, feeling the solid, warm weight of him, breathing in his sweet baby smell. Thomas immediately began rooting at her chest, and she realized it had been days since she had been able to nurse him properly. "Isaac," she called as he moved toward the tent opening. He paused and looked back. "Thank you for everything. I mean it." "You are welcome, Emma," he replied, and the warmth in his voice wrapped around her like a blanket. "Now feed that baby and rest up. We have a journey ahead of us." The trip to Las Vegas took 2.5 days. Isaac had fashioned a clever sling that allowed Emma to carry Thomas against her chest while riding in front of Isaac on his sturdy bay gelding named Copper. It should have been awkward, being pressed so close to a man who was essentially a stranger, but instead Emma found it comforting. Isaac kept one arm loosely around her waist to steady her, and his solid presence at her back made her feel secure in a way she had forgotten was possible. They traveled slowly, stopping frequently to tend to Thomas and to allow Emma to rest. Isaac proved to be an excellent traveling companion, entertaining her with stories about his work on the ranch, about the various horses he had trained, and the adventures he had experienced since coming west. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in years, the sound rusty and unfamiliar at first, then growing more natural as the miles passed. She learned that Isaac was 26 years old, that his favorite food was apple pie even though he rarely got to eat it, that he had taught himself to read using old newspapers and dime novels, and that his greatest dream was to someday own a small ranch of his own where he could breed and train horses. In turn, Emma shared her own story, not just the dark parts with Daniel, but the good memories too. Growing up in Missouri, her mother's laugh, the way her father used to dance her around the kitchen, the joy she had felt when she first held Thomas and counted his tiny fingers and toes. "You have been through a lot," Isaac observed on their second evening, as they made camp in a small canyon that offered shelter from the wind. Thomas was asleep in a nest of blankets, and Emma and Isaac sat near the small fire, tin cups of coffee warming their hands against the cooling desert air. "But you are still here, still fighting. That takes courage." "Sometimes it does not feel like courage," Emma admitted. "Sometimes it just feels like surviving." "Maybe courage is just another word for surviving when it would be easier to give up," Isaac suggested. He took a sip of his coffee, his profile silhouetted against the firelight. "You could have stayed, could have accepted that life, but you did not. You chose to protect your son, even though you did not know if you would make it, even though you were alone and afraid. That is courage, Emma. Do not sell yourself short." Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but they were different from the tears she had shed in the past months. These were not born of pain or fear, but of something lighter, something that felt almost like hope. "I am glad you found us," she said quietly. "I do not want to think about what would have happened if you had not come along when you did." Isaac turned to look at her, and in the firelight his eyes seemed to glow with warmth. "I am glad I found you too," he said, and there was a weight to the words that made Emma's heart skip. "These past few days, taking care of Thomas, getting to know you, it has been the best time I have had in a long while. I know that probably sounds strange, given the circumstances, but it is true. It does not sound strange, Emma replied. She set down her coffee cup, suddenly nervous in a way that had nothing to do with fear. I feel the same way. You have shown me that there are still good men in this world, Isaac. That not all of them are like Daniel. I had started to forget that. There are good people everywhere, Isaac said. You just had the bad luck to tie yourself to a bad one before you knew better. But that does not mean you are stuck there forever. You are making a new start, Emma, you and Thomas, and I have a feeling it is going to be a good one. They sat in comfortable silence after that, watching the fire burn down to embers, listening to the night sounds of the desert. Emma found herself acutely aware of Isaac's presence beside her, of the way his shoulder was close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, of the way he occasionally glanced over at Thomas to make sure the baby was sleeping peacefully. She had known this man for less than a week, and yet she felt more at ease with him than she had with her own husband after 2 years of marriage. The realization should have frightened her, but instead it filled her with a strange sense of rightness, as if all the terrible things she had endured had been leading her to this moment, to this person, to this chance at something better. They reached Las Vegas just after noon on the third day. The town was larger than Emma had expected. A bustling community of several thousand people built around the railway and the springs that gave the area its name. Wide dirt streets were lined with wooden and adobe buildings, everything from saloons to general stores to a proper hotel. People moved along the boardwalks, horses and wagons filled the streets, and the air rang with the sounds of commerce and conversation. Emma directed Isaac to the general store where her cousin's husband worked, a tidy establishment on Main Street with painted letters on the window announcing Mitchell's Goods and Supplies. As they dismounted, Emma feeling the stiffness in her legs from days of riding, the door to the store burst open and a woman came rushing out. Emma? Emma Morrison, is that really you? Sarah Mitchell was 3 years older than Emma, a plump, pretty woman with curly brown hair and warm brown eyes. She rushed forward, her hands fluttering with excitement and concern, taking in Emma's travel-worn appearance and the baby in her arms. Sarah, Emma said, and suddenly she was crying, all the fear and exhaustion and relief of the past days catching up with her at once. Sarah, I am so sorry to arrive like this. I did not know where else to go. Nonsense, you come right inside, Sarah said, wrapping an arm around Emma's shoulders and ushering her toward the store. She paused, looking back at Isaac. And who is this gentleman? This is Isaac Flynn, Emma said, turning back to see Isaac gathering their few belongings from his horse. Sarah, he saved my life. Thomas's life. If it were not for him, we would not have made it here. Sarah's eyes widened, and she immediately hurried over to Isaac, taking one of his hands in both of hers. Then you are a hero, Mr. Flynn, and you have my deepest gratitude. Please come inside. The least we can do is feed you a proper meal and let you rest before you head back to wherever you came from. Isaac looked past Sarah to Emma, and their eyes met and held. Emma saw hesitation in his expression, as if he was not quite ready to say goodbye, and she realized with a start that she was not ready either. The thought of him riding away, of never seeing him again, created an ache in her chest that had nothing to do with lingering illness. I would appreciate that, madam, Isaac said to Sarah, but his eyes never left Emma's face. That would be very kind. Inside the store, Sarah's husband Benjamin proved to be a solid, friendly man with a shock of red hair and a quick smile. He immediately insisted that Emma and Thomas would stay with them for as long as they needed and that Isaac was welcome to stay the night before heading back to his ranch. Sarah prepared a feast of food, laid out beds, and clucked over Thomas like a mother hen, declaring him the most beautiful baby she had ever seen. Throughout the afternoon, as Emma answered Sarah's questions and explained the situation with Daniel, she found her gaze drifting repeatedly to Isaac. He sat in a chair near the window, clearly uncomfortable with being idle, helping Benjamin sort through some inventory and talking about horses when the conversation turned that way. Every so often he would look up and meet Emma's eyes, and each time she felt that same flutter in her chest, that same sense of connection that had grown steadily stronger over their days of travel. That evening, after Thomas had been fed and settled to sleep, and after Sarah and Benjamin had retired to their own room upstairs, Emma found Isaac outside on the back porch of the house attached to the store. He was leaning against the railing, looking up at the stars, and he turned when he heard her step. "Could not sleep?" he asked softly. "Did not want to," Emma admitted. She moved to stand beside him, leaving a respectable distance between them, but wishing somehow that she did not have to. "You are leaving tomorrow." "That was the plan," Isaac said. He was quiet for a moment, then added, "Unless you need me to stay longer." Emma's heart leaped. "Isaac, you have done so much already. I cannot ask you to give up more of your time." "You are not asking, I am offering." He turned to face her fully, and in the moonlight his expression was earnest and vulnerable in a way she had not seen before. "Emma, I know this is probably not the right time, and I know you have been through hell and back, but I need to say this before I lose my nerve. These past few days with you and Thomas, they have meant something to me. You mean something to me. I am not expecting anything from you, and I know you need time to heal from everything you have been through, but I would like permission to call on you, to see you again, to maybe, if you are willing, see where this thing between us might lead." Emma felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were good tears, happy tears. "You feel it too?" she whispered. "I thought maybe I was imagining it, or that it was just gratitude making me feel this way." "It is not gratitude, Isaac said firmly. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and took her hand in his. His palm was warm and calloused, strong and gentle all at once. "At least not on my end. Emma, I think I started falling for you the moment I saw you fighting so hard to take care of your son, even while you were barely conscious with fever. And every moment since then has just made me fall harder. The way you love Thomas, the strength you have shown, the kindness in you despite everything you have suffered. You are remarkable." "I do not feel remarkable," Emma said, but she did not pull her hand away. Instead, she stepped closer, drawn by a force she could not name, and did not want to resist. "I feel broken and scared and so very tired of being alone." "Then do not be alone," Isaac said. "Let me be here for you. Let me help you build a new life, a better life. I am not saying we rush into anything. I know you need time. But give me a chance, Emma. Give us a chance." Emma looked up into his face, at the hope and vulnerability written there, and she thought about the past few days. She thought about how safe she had felt with Isaac's arms around her as they rode, how right it had felt to share her story with him, how natural it was to watch him care for her son. She thought about the future she had been imagining, one of loneliness and struggle, of raising Thomas alone and always looking over her shoulder. And then she thought about a different future, one where Isaac was there, where she had a partner instead of a tyrant, where love was something tender and nurturing instead of something that left bruises. "Yes," she said simply, "I would like that very much." The smile that broke across Isaac's face was like sunrise, brilliant and warm and full of promise. He raised her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles, and the gesture was so sweet, so respectful, that Emma felt something inside her chest crack open and let in light. "I will make you happy," Isaac promised. "I swear to you, Emma, I will spend every day trying to make you and Thomas happy." "You already have," Emma replied, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. Isaac did not leave the next morning. Instead, he sent word to the Farrow Ranch explaining the situation and asking for extended leave. Charles Farrow, who Isaac had painted as a fair and understanding man, sent back word granting Isaac 2 weeks, with the assurance that his job would be waiting when he returned. Isaac spent those 2 weeks in Las Vegas, ostensibly staying at the small boarding house near the edge of town, but in reality spending every daylight hour at the Mitchell house, helping with whatever needed doing and courting Emma with a patience and gentleness that made her fall more in love with him with each passing day. He brought her flowers picked from the desert, wild flowers in shades of yellow and purple that he presented with an endearing shyness. He read to her from the newspaper while she nursed Thomas, his voice a comforting backdrop to the peaceful domesticity of the moment. He helped Sarah with heavy lifting around the store, fixed a broken wagon wheel for Benjamin, and played endless games of peek-a-boo with Thomas that made the baby shriek with laughter. But more than any of that, Isaac talked with Emma. Really talked. He asked about her dreams, her hopes, what she wanted for Thomas's future, what she wanted for herself. He listened when she spoke about the trauma of her marriage, never trying to fix or minimize her pain, just offering steady support and understanding. And he shared his own vulnerabilities, his own fears and insecurities, creating a foundation of trust and honesty that Emma had never experienced in a relationship before. "I am not perfect," Isaac told her one afternoon as they walked along the edge of town, Thomas sleeping peacefully in a sling across Emma's chest. "I have a temper, though I have worked hard to control it, and I get stubborn about things sometimes. I am sure there are plenty of habits I have that will annoy you once you get to know me better. I snore, for one. My sister used to complain about it all the time." Emma laughed, the sound coming easily now. "I appreciate the warning. And since we are being honest, I am terribly stubborn too, and I have nightmares sometimes about Daniel. I wake up scared thinking he has found us." Isaac stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious. "If you have nightmares and you need someone, you come find me. Anytime, day or night, you understand? You do not have to be alone with that fear anymore." "We hardly know each other," Emma pointed out, though her heart was not in the argument. "A few weeks ago, we were strangers." "Time is not the same as connection," Isaac replied. He reached out and gently adjusted the sling, his knuckles brushing against Thomas's soft cheek. "I have known people for years and never felt a fraction of what I feel for you. Sometimes you just know, Emma. Sometimes your heart recognizes something before your head catches up." "My heart has terrible judgment," Emma said, but she was smiling. "It chose Daniel, after all." "No," Isaac said firmly. "You chose Daniel based on lies he told you about who he was. Your heart knew something was wrong. That is why you left. That is why you protected Thomas. Your heart is exactly right, Emma. Trust it." And so she did. As the days turned into weeks and Isaac's leave extended further with the blessing of his understanding employer, Emma allowed herself to trust the growing feelings between them. She let Isaac into her life, into her son's life, in ways she had never imagined she could again. And when Isaac finally kissed her, 6 weeks after he had first found her in that abandoned homestead, it was the sweetest thing she had ever experienced. They were standing in the small garden behind the Mitchell house, Thomas playing on a blanket in the shade while Emma and Isaac harvested vegetables for dinner. Their hands had brushed reaching for the same tomato, and suddenly Isaac was there, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes, smell the scent of leather and sage that always clung to him. "May I?" he asked softly, and the fact that he asked, that he requested permission rather than taking, made Emma love him even more. "Yes," she breathed, and then his lips were on hers, gentle and questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Emma did not want to pull away. She wanted to sink into this, into him, into the promise of something good and true. She kissed him back, her hands coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart beating fast and strong beneath her palms. When they finally parted, both breathing a bit harder, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know it is fast, and I know we are supposed to wait longer before saying things like that, but I do not want to wait. I love you, Emma Morrison. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you love your son. I love the sound of your laugh and the way you bite your lip when you are thinking hard about something. I love everything about you." Emma felt tears slip down her cheeks, but they were tears of joy this time, pure and uncomplicated. I love you too, she said, and saying the words felt like shrugging off a heavy coat she had been forced to wear too long. I love you, Isaac Flynn. You gave me back my life. You gave me back myself. How could I not love you? Marry me, Isaac said, and Emma pulled back in shock, her eyes wide. He took her hands in his, holding them gently but securely. I know it is soon. I know you probably need more time, and that is fine. I will wait as long as you need, but I want you to know my intentions. I want to marry you, Emma. I want to be Thomas's father, if you will let me. I want us to be a family. So I am asking now, even if the answer is not yet, will you marry me someday, when you are ready? Emma's mind raced. 6 weeks ago, she had been fleeing an abusive marriage, barely alive, with no prospects and no hope. Now she stood in a garden in Nevada, being proposed to by a good man, a kind man, a man who had proven his character through actions rather than empty words. It was too fast. It was too soon. She should say no, should tell him they needed more time. Yes, Emma heard herself say, and she realized the word had been waiting there all along, ready to emerge. Yes, Isaac, I will marry you. The joy on his face was incandescent. He swept her up in his arms, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around while she laughed breathlessly. Thomas let out a squeal from his blanket, as if celebrating too, and when Isaac set Emma back down, he immediately went to scoop up the baby, holding him high and grinning. You hear that, little man? Your mama said yes. I get to be your papa now. What do you think about that? Thomas gurgled happily and grabbed at Isaac's nose, which made both adults laugh. Emma watched them together, her son and the man she loved, and felt a peace settle over her that she had thought she would never experience. This was what family was supposed to feel like. This was what love was supposed to be. They married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the small church in Las Vegas, with Sarah and Benjamin serving as witnesses. Emma wore a simple dress of pale blue that Sarah had helped her sew, and she carried a bouquet of desert wildflowers. Isaac wore his best shirt and pants, his hair neatly combed, his eyes bright with happiness. Thomas, dressed in a tiny gown that had been Isaac's own christening gown saved by his sister and sent express when she heard the news, was the picture of innocence as Isaac held him during the ceremony. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Isaac kissed Emma with such tenderness that Sarah started crying happy tears, Emma felt the last chains of her past life fall away. She was no longer Daniel Morrison's wife, no longer a woman defined by suffering and survival. She was Emma Flynn now, and she was loved, and she was free. The concern about Daniel finding them did not disappear overnight. For the first few months of their marriage, as Emma and Thomas moved into a small house Isaac rented on the edge of Las Vegas while he worked at the Faro Ranch during the day, Emma would sometimes wake in the night, heart pounding, convinced she heard Daniel's voice or his footsteps. But each time, Isaac was there, gathering her into his arms, reminding her that she was safe, that he would protect her, that they would face anything together. Finally, 6 months after the wedding, word came through Sarah that Daniel Morrison had been killed in a bar fight in Santa Fe. He had been drunk, had provoked the wrong man, and had paid the ultimate price for his violence. Emma knew she should feel something, should mourn the man she had once thought she loved, but all she felt was relief. Thomas would never have to know his biological father. He would only know Isaac, the man who had chosen to love him and raise him as his own. Are you all right? Isaac asked that evening, after they had put Thomas to bed and sat together on their small porch watching the sun set over the desert. I am free, Emma replied simply. For the first time since I was 18 years old and made the mistake of marrying him, I am truly free. He cannot hurt us anymore. He cannot take Thomas. It is over. Isaac pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in his familiar scent. It has been over, he said quietly, from the moment you rode away from him. But I'm glad you can feel that now. Glad you can have peace. I have more than peace, Emma said, tilting her head up to look at him. I have happiness. I have love. I have a future I actually want to live. And it is all because of you. It is because of you, Isaac corrected. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. You are the one who had the courage to leave. You are the one who fought to survive. You are the one who built this new life. We built it, Emma insisted. Together? Together, Isaac agreed. And he sealed the word with a kiss that still made Emma's heart race even after months of marriage. As Thomas grew from an infant into a toddler, the little family flourished. Isaac proved to be an extraordinary father, patient and playful and devoted. He taught Thomas to walk, celebrated his first words, comforted him through nightmares and teething and all the small trials of childhood. Emma had never seen a man so completely commit himself to fatherhood, and it made her love Isaac more with each passing day. The work at the Faro Ranch was good, but Isaac had not forgotten his dream of owning his own place. He and Emma saved every spare penny, planning for the future they both wanted. Emma took in sewing and mending to contribute, her skills with a needle proving valuable in a town where ready-made clothing was expensive and often poorly made. Together they built a nest egg, slowly but steadily, working toward the day when they could afford their own land. That day came sooner than expected when Charles Faro, impressed by Isaac's work and dedication, offered to sell him 50 acres of ranch land at the edge of the property at a price far below market value. It was a generous gift, the kind that changed lives, and Isaac had come home that day with tears in his eyes and disbelief in his voice. He said, I am like the son he never had, Isaac told Emma as they sat at their small kitchen table, Thomas playing with wooden blocks at their feet. He said he wants to help me achieve my dream because I helped his ranch succeed. Emma, we can do this. We can build our own place. It will be hard work, but we can do it. We absolutely can, Emma said firmly, reaching across the table to take his hand. We can do anything together. And so they did. Over the next 2 years, Isaac and Emma built their ranch from the ground up, quite literally. They started with a small cabin, just 3 rooms, but it was theirs. Isaac trained horses while Emma managed the household and started a small chicken operation, selling eggs in town. Thomas grew strong and healthy, trailing after his father whenever possible, learning about horses and ranching almost before he learned to read. When Thomas was 3 years old, Emma discovered she was pregnant again. The news filled both her and Isaac with joy tinged with nervousness. Thomas's birth had been difficult, complicated by her situation with Daniel, and Emma worried about how her body would handle another pregnancy. But Isaac was with her every step of the way, cutting back his work to ensure he was never far from home, treating Emma like spun glass even when she insisted she was fine. Their second child, a son they named Henry after Isaac's grandfather, was born on a cool October evening in 1885. The birth was easier than Thomas's had been, attended by the local midwife, with Isaac pacing anxiously outside until he was allowed in to meet his son. When the midwife placed Henry in Isaac's arms, Emma watched her husband's face transform with wonder and love. He is perfect, Isaac breathed, counting tiny fingers and toes, just as Emma had done with Thomas. Look at him, Emma, he has your nose. And your stubborn chin, Emma replied, exhausted but happy. Thomas, who had been staying with Sarah and Benjamin, was brought home the next day and proved to be a devoted big brother from the start, constantly wanting to hold the baby and help care for him. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters when money was tight, seasons when illness swept through the livestock, moments of doubt and worry and struggle. But through it all, Emma and Isaac faced everything together, their partnership growing stronger with each challenge overcome. They worked side by side to expand the ranch, adding more acreage as they could afford it, building a reputation for quality horses that spread throughout the territory. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Isaac surprised Emma with a new house. It was not large or fancy, but it was beautiful, with 4 bedrooms and a real kitchen and windows that let in the desert light. He had been building it in secret for months, working early mornings and late evenings, determined to give his family the home they deserved. "Isaac Flynn, how did you hide this from me?" Emma demanded, tears streaming down her face as she walked through the rooms, taking in every detail from the carved mantel over the fireplace to the window seat in what would be their bedroom. "I am sneaky when I want to be," Isaac replied, grinning. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Do you like it?" "I love it," Emma whispered. "I love you. So very much." "I love you too," Isaac said. "Thank you for saying yes to me all those years ago. Thank you for giving me this life, this family. You are everything to me, Emma. Everything." When Thomas was 7 and Henry was 4, Emma found herself pregnant again. This time it was a daughter, born in the spring of 1888 with a head full of dark hair and Isaac's green eyes. They named her Rebecca, after Isaac's sister, who had proven to be a wonderful correspondent and aunt over the years, despite the distance between Nevada and California. Rebecca completed their family in a way Emma had not realized was missing. After 3 sons in total, the little girl brought a different energy to the household, fierce and determined even as an infant. Isaac doted on her shamelessly, completely wrapped around her tiny finger from the moment he first held her. "I thought I could not love anything more than I loved you and the boys," Isaac confessed to Emma one evening as they watched Rebecca sleep in her cradle. "But somehow there is more. There is always more love. How is that possible?" "Because love is not finite," Emma replied, leaning against him. "It grows to fill whatever space we give it. And we have given it so much space, Isaac. We have built a whole life on love." As the children grew, the ranch prospered. Isaac's reputation as a horse trainer was well established throughout Nevada and even into California. People came from hundreds of miles away to buy horses trained by Isaac Flynn, knowing they were getting an animal that was not only well broke but also treated with kindness and respect. Emma's chicken operation had expanded into a full poultry business, and she had also started a small vegetable garden that provided produce for their family and extra to sell in town. Thomas showed a natural aptitude for ranching and announced at age 10 that he intended to take over the family business someday. Henry was gentler, more interested in books and learning, and Emma and Isaac discussed the possibility of sending him to school in California when he was older. Rebecca, still young but already showing her personality, seemed to be a perfect combination of both her brothers and her parents, fierce when needed but also incredibly tender. The years passed in a blur of work and love and laughter. Emma and Isaac celebrated 10 years of marriage, then 15, then 20. They weathered droughts and economic downturns, celebrated births and mourned deaths, watched their children grow into remarkable young people. Through it all, their love never wavered. Never. If anything, it deepened with each passing year, becoming something more profound and essential than passion or romance. It became partnership in its truest sense, a bond forged through shared experience and unwavering commitment. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1908, Thomas, now a grown man of 26 running much of the ranch operations himself, organized a celebration. He brought his own wife, a sweet woman named Catherine he had married the year before, and Henry came home from the university in California where he was studying to become a teacher. Rebecca, at 20 years old and courting a young rancher from the neighboring property, helped organize the entire event. Friends and neighbors came from all over to celebrate Isaac and Emma, filling their ranch with music and laughter and food. Sarah and Benjamin, both graying now but still healthy and happy, traveled from Las Vegas to attend. Even Rebecca Flynn, Isaac's sister, made the long journey from California with her husband and grown children. As the party wound down and the sun began to set, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and pink and purple, Emma found herself standing on the porch of the house Isaac had built for her 20 years earlier. Isaac came to stand beside her, his hair now threaded with silver, his face lined with years, but his green eyes still as bright as the day she had first seen him. "Happy anniversary," he said softly, taking her hand in his. "Happy anniversary," Emma replied. She looked out over the land they had built together, at the children and grandchildren playing in the yard, at the life they had created from nothing but hope and hard work and love. Can you believe it has been 25 years? Sometimes it feels like yesterday, Isaac said. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, but every day has been a gift, Emma. Even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones because we faced them together. Emma turned to look at her husband, at the man who had saved her life in more ways than one, who had shown her what love really meant, who had built a family and a legacy with her. I think about that day sometimes, she admitted. The day you found me. I was so close to giving up, so close to just letting the fever take me. But then you were there, holding Thomas, promising to take care of him, and everything changed. Everything changed for me too, Isaac said. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it, just as he had done that night in Las Vegas so many years ago. You and Thomas, you gave me purpose. You gave me a reason to be the man I wanted to be. You made me a husband and a father. You made me complete. We made each other complete, Emma corrected gently. She leaned into him and he wrapped his arms around her, and they stood there together as the sun set on another day of their life together. In the years that followed, Emma and Isaac continued to thrive. They watched Thomas and Catherine welcome 3 children of their own, ensuring the Flynn Ranch would continue for another generation. They attended Henry's graduation from university and celebrated when he accepted a position as headmaster at a school in California, though they missed him terribly when he moved away. They danced at Rebecca's wedding to that young rancher, delighted to see their daughter so happy and loved. Emma lived to see her great-grandchildren born, tiny miracles that reminded her how far she had come from that desperate woman fleeing into the desert with a baby in her arms. She and Isaac grew old together with grace, their bodies slowing, but their love never diminishing. They still sat together on the porch each evening, still held hands when they walked, still looked at each other with the same wonder and affection they had felt in those early days. When Isaac died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 76 in 1932, Emma mourned deeply but without bitterness. They had been given 50 years together, 50 years of building and loving and living fully. She buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch, beneath a cottonwood tree they had planted together in their first year of marriage, and she visited him there every day until her own death 3 years later at the age of 72. Their children buried Emma beside Isaac, and on the shared headstone, Thomas had carved not just their names and dates, but a simple inscription that captured the essence of their love story. She was lost, and he found her. Together they built something beautiful. The Flynn Ranch continued to operate for generations, passed down through Thomas's children and then their children. The story of how it all began became family legend, told and retold at gatherings and celebrations. The story of a desperate woman with a sick baby and a cowboy with a kind heart who stopped to help. The story of how love could bloom even in the harshest conditions, how it could heal the deepest wounds, how it could transform a moment of desperation into a lifetime of joy. And if you visited the ranch even years later, even after both Emma and Isaac were long gone, you could still feel the love they had built into every board and nail, every fence post and water trough. It was in the land itself, in the horses that ran in the pastures, in the house that still stood strong and welcoming. Their love had created not just a family, but a legacy, proof that even when life seems darkest, even when fever clouds your mind and your baby cries with hunger and you have nowhere left to run, salvation can arrive in the form of a kind stranger with gentle hands and an open heart. Emma Morrison, Flynn lived a long and happy life, so different from the one she had imagined in those dark days with Daniel. She died surrounded by love, her children and grandchildren there to hold her hand as she slipped away, whispering Isaac's name at the end as if he was calling her home. And perhaps he was. Perhaps death was just another journey they would take together, the final adventure in a lifetime of adventures. From that first desperate meeting in the desert to that last peaceful breath, Emma and Isaac had proven that love was not just a feeling but a choice, made again and again every single day. They had chosen each other through sickness and health, through poverty and prosperity, through every challenge and celebration life had thrown their way. Their story lived on long after they were gone, a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of commitment, and the endless, boundless, miraculous nature of love itself. It began with a cowboy holding a baby while a woman healed from fever, and it ended decades later with that same couple resting side by side beneath the Nevada sky they had both loved so much, having built something more permanent and precious than any ranch or fortune. They had built a love that would never die, as long as someone remained to tell the story. And there would always be someone, generation after generation, ready to share the tale of Emma and Isaac Flynn, the woman who was lost, and the cowboy who found her, and the beautiful life they created together out of nothing but hope and determination and an unshakable faith in each other. That faith, that love, that partnership was their true legacy, more valuable than any land or money or material possession. It was the gift they gave to their children and their children's children, the proof that even in the wild and often harsh world of the Old West, kindness existed, goodness prevailed, and love could conquer even the darkest circumstances. Emma had been sick with fever, and her baby had needed care, and Isaac had held that baby while she healed. But what happened after that, the 50 years of marriage and family and love, that was the real miracle. That was the real story. Not just survival, but flourishing. Not just escaping darkness, but stepping into light. Not just finding safety, but discovering joy. And in the end, as Emma lay dying with her family around her, she smiled thinking of all they had accomplished, all they had built, all they had loved. She thought of that first moment she had opened her eyes in Isaac's camp and seen him holding her son, the tenderness in his face as he fed Thomas, the promise in his voice when he said he would protect them. She thought of their first kiss, their wedding day, the birth of each of their children, the 1,000 small moments that had made up their life together. "Thank you," she whispered, though Isaac had been gone for 3 years and could not hear her. "Thank you for stopping. Thank you for caring. Thank you for loving us." But maybe he could hear her somehow from wherever he was waiting. Maybe love transcended even death, stretching across the boundaries of life to connect souls that had been bound together through choice and commitment and unwavering devotion. Emma Morrison Flynn had lived a remarkable life, a life that had started in desperation and ended in peace, a life that had taught her that redemption was possible, that healing was real, that love was the most powerful force in the universe. And as she took her last breath surrounded by the family she and Isaac had created, she carried with her the absolute certainty that this was not the end. It was simply another beginning, another chance to be with the man who had saved her in every possible way, the cowboy who had held her baby while she healed and then spent the rest of his life holding her heart with the same gentle care. Their story ended where it had always been meant to end, with two souls reunited, their love eternal, their legacy secure in the generations they had created and the land they had nurtured, and the example they had set of what it meant to truly love someone, fully and completely, for better or worse, until death and beyond. The desert wind still blew across the Flynn ranch, carrying with it the whispers of their story, ensuring that Emma and Isaac would never truly be forgotten, that their love would continue to inspire long after the last person who knew them personally had passed away. Because some stories are too powerful to die, some loves are too strong to fade, and some people, even in death, continue to teach the living about what matters most. Emma and Isaac Flynn were such people, their love such a love, their story such a story. And it all began with a simple act of kindness, a cowboy stopping to help a woman with fever and her baby who needed care, and choosing to stay long enough for both of them to realize they had found something neither had been looking for but both desperately needed. they had found each other. And in finding each other, they had found home.